Dr. Ann. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Ann. Ann is one of our resident licensed Unity teachers. She's also a retired planetary geologist and a mother to 3 children and a recent grandmother and my spouse. And she's just a great human. And we are so fortunate to have her with us today. So I'm just going to hand over this platform to Ann, and she can give the greatest talk.
You hope.
I trust.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am so happy and grateful to be with you. Today, I invite you to follow the golden thread. It's a path that weaves together the rule, the key, and the inner source. These 3 simple yet powerful principles show us how the way we treat others, the way we direct our attention, and the resources within us are all connected. You know, spiritual principles are not always easy to understand, but they can be very easy to apply. To illustrate this, I will use the golden rule and the golden thread. They both come from different traditions than unity, yet they beautifully align with unity teachings. The golden rule and the golden key are perfect tools to help us tap into what I like to call the unity gold mine. They are simple, practical ways to live with more peace, think clearer, and have a deeper sense of inner supply, no matter what's going on around us. So this idea of our theme for the year, going with it, right? So what I mean is that the golden rule and the golden key help us discover the gold within every person, every situation, and within ourselves. Let me tell you more about the golden rule, the golden key, God as gold mine, and how to apply them in your life to become spiritually richer. The first trend of the golden thread that we will explore is the golden rule, the way that we treat each other. It is in Matthew chapter 7, verses 12, that we find the golden rule written as this. In everything, do to others as you would have them do to you, for this is the law and the prophets. This principle is not limited to one tradition or one culture. It is a universal truth that resonates across time and around the world. When we listen closely, we can hear the same wisdom echoing in many spiritual paths, each offering its own perspective on the shared human experience and our connection to the divine. Long before Jesus presumably spoke the words we know as the golden rule from Matthew, in Hinduism, one of the world's oldest spiritual paths, the Mahabharata teaches, do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you. Let me say that again. Do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you. Centuries later, and still long before Jesus, Buddhism, emerging from that same spiritual landscape, expressed the same truth as the golden rule through compassion, teaching in the Udana Varga, hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. And centuries after Jesus, Islam, the youngest of the major world religions, reaffirms the same timeless ethic, reminding believers that faith is incomplete unless we desire for others what we desire for ourselves. It is written in the Hadith, none of you truly believes until he wishes for his brother what he wishes for himself. So see, across centuries and culture, the message remains the same. When we recognize our deep connection to one another, love, becomes the natural way we live. And thus, the Golden Rule is not owned by one religion. It is recognized wherever human beings awaken to their shared humanity and divine connection. Truly, the basis of the Golden Rule is that what we give out energetically returns to us. Huh. Does this not sound like karma to you? You know, karma simply means action, although karma is often associated with punishment, right? So it is, in fact, about cause and effect in consciousness. Every thought, every intention, and every action carries an energy. And that energy sets something in motion that eventually returns to us in some form. When we act with kindness, with compassion, or with respect, we place those qualities into the flow of life, and life responds in kind. From a unity perspective, this is not fate, F-A-T-E. It is feedback. In this way, karma and the Golden Rule are pointing to the same truth. The energy we give out is the energy we experience. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, described the law of mind action as thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. In other words, consciousness is causal. What we consistently think, feel, and energize does not stay internal. It moves into expression. And that is precisely the same dynamic described by the Golden Rule and karma. Unity teaches that when we think with love, with fairness, and with compassion, we set a law in motion that expresses as harmony in our relationships and experiences. When we do otherwise, we experience the results of misdirected thought, not because God punishes, but because law operates impartially. So the Golden Rule is not just ethical, it is metaphysical. And using a unity lens, the Golden Rule expresses unity's view that how we treat others is how we reveal the Christ within them. I invite you to reflect on this. How would your interaction shift today if you consciously chose to see the gold in each person? Going back to the law of mind action, what is especially important about it is that it is always redeemable. We are not trapped by past causes. The moment we change our thinking, we change the pattern moving forward. Let me say that again. The moment we change our thinking, we change the pattern moving forward. That's where the golden key fits beautifully. By turning our attention to God, we interrupt old mental causes and establish new ones. The second strand we will explore is the golden key. Both Charles and Merle Fillmore, co-founders of Unity, were highly influenced by the work of their contemporary Emmett Fox. It is first in a standalone essay, a pamphlet from 1931, that Emmett Fox described the essence of his golden key, stating, "Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead." This does not mean denying reality. It means choosing which reality we energize. Decades after its initial publication, the Golden Key remains a powerful inspirational work with a profound message of truth. And you can get a free downloadable booklet version of it through Unity Store. I will provide that link in the chat after the meditation. So now I want to talk about, there were four original Unity teachers: Charles, Myrtle, their son Lowell Fillmore, and there was Emily Cady. And Emily Cady wrote Lessons in Truth in the last decades of the 1800s. In lesson 4, she describes how denials are not about fighting appearances. They are about withdrawing beliefs from error. When we stop giving energy to error and return attention to truth, the appearance loses its power. That's what Emily Cady is telling us. This sounds like the essence of the golden key. So while Emmett Fox coined the term in golden key in the 1930s, the teachings itself is far older. And just as with the golden rule, when we look across spiritual traditions and centuries, we find the same inner movement taught again and again. When life feels difficult, we do not solve the problem by fixing our attention on the problem. We find peace and transformation by turning our attention to God, by going within. Ancient contemplative traditions taught turning the mind away from turmoil and into steady awareness of the divine. Christian mystics spoke of releasing attachment to appearances in order to rest in God's presence. Fox did not invent this principle. He distilled it. The golden key is simply a clear, practical way of expressing a timeless spiritual law. Where we place our attention, we place our life. In this book, Make Your Life Worthwhile, from 1942, Emmett Fox writes that what he calls the golden key is the realization of God is our salvation. When you realize the spiritual truth about any problem, you are lifting up the Christ in consciousness, and the healing follows. A year earlier in his book, Find and Use Your Inner Power, Emmett Fox writes that using the golden key take only a moment, and it never fails. It never fails. I came across the golden key for the first time in my life during one of my courses in the License Unity program. And that was only 2 years ago. So it was mentioned in the book, The Many Faces of Prayer by Thomas Shepard. What a practical tool is the golden key. You see, for years, I have been having trouble falling asleep and waking up multiple times at night for various reasons and unable to easily fall back asleep. You think about the monkey mind, I think I have multiple monkeys in my mind. So I got over the not being able to fall asleep, working this idea of, making a list, putting things aside and clearing my mind. I can fall asleep. But then I'd still wake up multiple times at night. So that day, after reading about the golden key, I wake up the first time and I think, okay, wait a minute. Stop thinking about stuff. Think about God. So I start saying, okay, God is in me. I am in God. Bang! I fell asleep. I woke up a second time and I realized that I'd fallen asleep pretty quick. So I went, okay, wait a minute. So what do I need to think about God? Okay, the oneness is in everything and everywhere. How does that feel? Bang! Fell back asleep. I woke up a third time. I did it again. I fell back asleep. It's amazing. You should try it. That's the golden key in action. Not fixing the problem. Why am I waking up? But shifting the focus. I need to be asleep. Bang! I fall back asleep. So you see, it is all about the thoughts you hold in mind. When you notice that these thoughts are anxious or negative, you hold the key to turn them into peaceful and positive one by gently shifting your attention to divine ideas, such as love, peace, wisdom, abundance, and life. You could do so by holding a simple statement such as, God is my source and my strength. The idea that God is our infinite supply for our highest good is woven throughout Unity's foundational teachings. Myrtle Fillmore expresses this truth with deep tenderness and assurance in her healing letters when she writes, "Be still, be still, be still. God in the midst of you is substance. God in the midst of you is love. God in the midst of you is wisdom. Let not your thoughts be giving over to lack, but let wisdom fill them with the substance and faith of God. Let your heart be a center of love so sure and unfailing, love so irresistible and magnetic that it draws your supply to you from the great storehouse of the universe." Some of you may recognize these words. They are from Morning with Myrtle, Day 2. Myrtle reminds us that supply is not something we chase. It is something we allow by stilling fear and letting divine substance move through us. Unity is very clear here. Turning to God is not turning to an external rescuer. It is turning inward to truth. Emily Cady deepens this understanding in her Lessons in Truth, Lessons 10, Finding the Secret Place, when she writes, "The light that we want is not something that God has to give. It is God himself. God does not give us life or love as a thing. God is life and light and love. More of himself is in our consciousness than is what we all want." In other words, God does not dispense supply as a gift from afar. God is the supply, becoming visible as we become conscious of it. In lesson 1 of his book, Prosperity, Charles Fillmore describes this same idea using the language of spiritual substance. He teaches that what we are already immersed in is in a living, flowing, present stream in which we already live and move. In particular, I like this quote, which relates to the golden key. So from lesson 1 in Prosperity: "Do not center your thought upon yourself, your interest, your gain or losses, but realize the universal nature of substance. As we align our awareness with divine substance, the flow naturally increases, and not just for us, but for the good of all." So now you can see the pattern clearly. With the golden rule, we treat others so that we reveal the Christ within us through loving action. With the golden key, we stop thinking about difficulties and we redirect our attention to truth. We turn to our Christ within to tap into our infinite supply and be filled with substance. And together, the golden rule and the golden key lead us to the divine gold mine, the unlimited supply within. And this is the third and final strand of the golden thread. Deep in us, there is a reservoir of divine qualities: faith, wisdom, strength, love, etc. And this is the inner gold for us to mine. Our work is not to beg for supply, but to tap into what is already ours as divine beings. And all of this may sound very lofty or abstract, right? God as substance, supply as consciousness. But there's a scripture that gives us a simple human story that brings this truth down to earth. Let me tell you about the story of the widow's oil found in the book of Kings. A widow comes to the prophet Elisha in desperation. Her husband has died, her debts are mounting, and she fears losing her son to her creditors. Elisha does not ask the widow how much money she needs, nor does he offer her charity. Instead, he asks a question that sounds almost strange under the circumstances. He asks, "What do you have in your house?" At first, the widow answers from lack, "Nothing at all." But then she adds, "Well, except a small jar of oil." That "except" changes everything. Elisha tells her to go home, borrow empty vessels from her neighbors, as many as she can, go inside, shut the door, and begin pouring the oil she already has. And as she pours, the oil keeps flowing, filling vessel after vessel after vessel. It only stops when there are no more empty vessels. The widow is then able to sell the oil, pay her debts, and live from what remains. Metaphysically, this is a perfect illustration of what unity means when we say God is our infinite supply. But what's central to this story is the question, what do you have in your house? Elisha never directs her attention to what she lacks. He turns her inward to what is already present. The widow believes she has nothing, but she discovers she already possesses the seed of her provision. Next, the oil represents spiritual substance, divine life, wisdom, love, all seemingly small, but unlimited when it is put into motion. The empty vessels, they represent receptivity, our willingness to receive without placing limits on how good can show up. The instruction to borrow many vessels suggests expanding consciousness beyond fear, beyond scarcity. And supply flows in proportion to our openness, not our need. And finally, the instruction to shut the door mirrors the golden key. Turn away from fear, from appearances, from opinions, and from doubt, and go do the work within. When attention is withdrawn from appearances and placed on God, substance flows. The flow of oil does not stop because God withholds. It stops only when there is no longer room to receive. There's no more empty vessel. The story does not end with crisis resolution. It ends with sustained supply. Supply flows according to consciousness. So when we align with divine substance, it supports both present needs and future living. And this is exactly what Myrtle meant when she said, God in the midst of you is substance. It is what Emily Cady meant when she said, the light we want is God himself. And it is what Charles meant when he taught that we live within the living stream of spiritual substance. What do you already have in your house? What small jar of oil might already be present within you that you have been overlooking or underestimating? What empty vessel in your life is ready to receive if you were willing to trust the flow? To wrap up, see the golden rule as action, the golden key as thought, and the gold mine as being. Together, they describe a whole spiritual life. How I treat others is how I demonstrate the Christ. That's the action. That's the golden rule. Where I place my attention determines my experiences. That's my thoughts, the golden key. And living the truth that I know, which is the fifth principle of unity. It is claiming that I already contain the divine resources I need. That's being divine. That's hitting the gold mine. What I presented to you today is that we live at our best when we act with love, think with spiritual truth, and trust the divine richness within us. I encourage you to mine the gold in every situation this week. I invite you to simply do this three-part practice. First, practice the golden rule. Consciously look for the gold in every person you encounter. Before reacting, ask yourself, how would I want to be treated here? Second, practice the golden key. When a worry, a problem, or an anxious thought arises, stop thinking about the stuff and gently turn your attention to God or to love, wisdom, peace, or your inner strength. And third, remember the gold mine. Trust that you already contain the divine resources you need. You are not lacking. You are connected to an unlimited supply. May we act with love, think with truth, and trust the gold within us this week and always. Okay, so now let us take a moment to move inward. Allow yourself to become still. I invite you to gently close your eyes if that feels comfortable, and begin by bringing your awareness to your breath. With each inhale, feel life filling you. With each exhale, let go of tension, concern, or self-judgment. Breathe and let go. Notice the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Inhale and exhale. Let each breath bring you more fully into this moment. Now, as you breathe, let your body soften. Release any tensions in your shoulders, your jaw, your hands. Let it all melt into the presence of peace. As we settle in, let the outer world soften for a moment and turn your attention within to the quiet place where God is present. Unity teaches that God is substance, the very essence of life itself. So imagine now that deep within you is a rich divine reservoir, a living gold mine filled with faith, wisdom, love, strength, and peace. You do not need to create this gold. You do not need to earn it. It is already there because God is already there. If there is a place in your life that feels empty, uncertain, or worried right now, simply notice it without judgment. Now, imagine gently turning your attention away from the worry and towards the presence of God within you. Like the widow with her small jar of oil, allow what is already present to begin flowing. Imagine divine substance quietly pouring into that empty space, filling it with light, warmth, and sufficiency. You do not have to force the flow. You only need to be willing to receive. Silently affirm with me, God in the midst of me is substance. God in the midst of me is my strength. God in the midst of me is my unfailing supply. Feel that inner gold flowing steadily, gently, abundantly, according to your openness. Rest for a moment in the awareness that you are connected to an unlimited source. And now let us gently return, gently bring your awareness back, carrying this truth with you. The gold you seek is already within you. Take a few deeper breaths. Allow your body to move or stretch as it feels right. And when you are ready, slowly open your eyes, grounded, clear, ready to act from love, think from truth, and draw from the infinite supply within.